somebody for you. Because you don't want me not borrow from you. Okay, use pencil for the president. So this is for all right, just give us a few minutes. We're trying to get somebody from St. Joseph. Yes. Let me write it.
It wasn't that the last time, it was 7-7. I was timing it. No, I was given instruction from Germany. You tell me what I did? The former.
All right, Mr. 765. It's all right, 765. No, that last time dead. Miss, that time dead. Today is a new day. Just memorize it. Exactly. Some of them it's all right. We work with 7. You know how many times we carry 7 pages somewhere and only 5 minutes me out. It's part of the training.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we invite you to take your seats. Just want to remind you that whilst the debate is going on, we encourage you not to walk, not to traverse the space, so that you do not disturb the proceedings. We ask that you pay special attention to our adjudicators. They will indicate when they are ready and they are in need of silence when we do any little break. All right, I'm going to invite the team from Sam Sharp Teachers College just to come and take their seats. Let's give them a round of applause, please. Sam Sharp Teachers College will be proposing in this first round match. I'm going to invite the members of the Church Teachers College just to come and take their seats. They'll be opposing in this match. I'm sorry. I'm going to invite the representative from Jade, the chief adjudicator for today's proceedings, Mr. Matthew White, just to come and give his announcements before the match begins. Let's make him welcome, please.
Good morning, everyone. As you just heard a while ago, my name is Matthew White. I'm going to be serving as your chief adjudicator this morning for this match. Just to introduce my panel here. We have Miss Jacqueline to my right. She's going to be serving as our timekeeper this morning. Yes, from St. Joseph's. To my extreme left, we have Miss Donald from GC Foster. And also from Jade, we have Miss Felicity Vassell, Senior Programs Manager at Jade, serving also as a wing. So the timing for the speeches this morning, we have 7 minutes for each first speaker, 6 minutes for the second speaker. A 5-minute cross-sectioning period will give you 1 minute after the second speech period for that cross-sectioning period. And then after that, 5 minutes for reply speeches. Right? Is everybody understood? Yes. Okay. We'll start the round by introducing the proposition speaker to come up and provide the first substantive. Here.
Honorable Moderator, esteemed judges, members of the audience, and distinguished parliamentarians, good morning.
Good morning.
This government is in firm support of the motion, which suggests that immediately after leaving teachers' colleges, our graduate teachers should pursue mandatory services. This intervention will enable nation building, stimulate more productivity for welfare-based entities, and develop human capital. In terms of defining or interpreting the motion, Madam Moderator, service is a noun for the type of work done by one party to help another group, according to dictionary.com. Our motion argues for mandatory service, which is described by Procon, an American research-based site, as a legally obligatory period that a government requires a young adult population to help the society. Mandatory service typically comprises voluntary labor intervention in military or civic institutions. In the case of this government bench, we are defining teachers who immediately left teachers' colleges as recent graduates who earned a graduate certification within 2 years of the date of issue of this qualified certification. These graduates range from age 18 to 45 years. These graduate teachers are expected to commit to compulsory forms of volunteerism in the civic institutions of a government and establish non-governmental nature for 1 calendar year. The work site of our mandatory service, Madam Moderator, will include and focus on schools, community youth groups, police youth groups, church groups, orphanages, elderly care homes, and community infrastructure. All these civic organizations aim to counter poverty and inequality as envisioned by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals 1 to 4. It must be noted that in the government, our Jamaican model of mandatory service, conscription of our teacher graduates to the military will not be pursued. Jamaica enjoys favorable diplomatic relations with democratic-driven CARICOM neighbors, Communist Cuba, and the hegemon United States. Madam Moderator, as the Prime Minister, I will prove that mandatory service facilitates 3 pillars: nation building, loyal citizenship, and enhanced labor productivity. My Deputy Prime Minister will subsequently explain how mandatory service will unleash personal growth of fulfillment in young graduate teachers and their human capital attainments. This government will promote mandatory service, knowing that it will evoke nation building like in the cases of Nigeria and Rwanda. According to the Global Institute Dialogue 2021, An Africa in Tradition, December 8, 2017 article by John Campbell, the National Youth Service Corps of Nigeria legally guarantees that all immediate university graduates spend their first years as volunteers in the civic programs in Nigeria. By being posted as a volunteer in a different ethnic and linguistic region, assimilation and interculturation leads to appreciation of a nation-state of Nigeria. Regional identities linked to regions of Asa, Igbo, Yoruba, and Fulani are negated. Social volunteers also gain entrepreneurial skills and build social networks as tribal barriers are broken. As Prime Minister of Jamaica, I am proposing a mandatory service scheme in which we post our teacher graduates in towns and districts in proximity to their home. While class dynamics dynamics vary, meanwhile, our graduates will earn twice the minimum wage bar as a stipend, which is significantly higher than the rates offered to the Nigerian graduate corps. The opposition cannot accuse my government of violating ILO standards of labor, as we will ensure all our budding teachers are also paid a national insurance contribution. My second argument to show the merits of mandatory service hinges on its usefulness in engendering citizenship or community pride, exemplified in the story of post-genocide Rwanda. Subsequent to 1994, Rwanda now uses the last Saturday per month for national volunteering in the cleaning up of the environment. Madam Moderator, according to this government report by the Rwandan government, for 2007 to 2016, the free labor has facilitated roads, parks, and forest protection. Rwanda's people are proud of their East African miracle story, with its capital being considered a tourist hub, evoking pride among citizens. A third advantage of mandatory service is the free labor it provides to a nation. Its example of Rwanda from 2007 to 2016 estimated that volunteerism saved Rwanda 127 million US. Madam Moderator, in the same vein, Jamaica can benefit by making the teacher graduates plug labor gaps in welfare organization. This government is confident that we can modify the legislation to instrumentalize a one-year mandatory period for teacher graduates. This will stimulate nation building, citizenship, and labor. Please stay tuned as my Deputy Prime Minister who will link mandatory service to personal growth and human capital. I thank you.
Imagine, after 4 years of hard work and sacrifices, spending millions of dollars, thousands of hours studying, investing your time and energy, you are forced to be overworked and underpaid and lack the resources needed to carry out your duties. Honorable judges, members of the opposition, and valued audience members, good day. Today, we firmly oppose the motion that this House would introduce a mandatory service period for teachers immediately upon leaving Teachers College. We acknowledge that Jamaica suffers from a teacher shortage issue. However, mandating teachers to work in a country where ends can hardly be met is not the right approach to resolve the issue. Let's not be fooled. Madam Prime Minister gave examples of voluntary service. However, mandatory service is not a choice. I aim to explore the underlying issue that results in the government trying to implement such drastic measures, as well as the low retention that would be caused after the implementation of mandatory service. The second speaker will delve into the potential drop in population in teachers' colleges and the excluded demographic. The third speaker will refute the government's outrageous claims while solidifying why mandatory service for teachers is not the right approach. Mandatory service is a compulsory obligation for individuals to serve in a particular role for a specific period, typically imposed by the government. It is often implemented with legislative support, such as the implementation of laws to persecute those who are found in breach, giving individuals no option but to comply. Immediately in this context means without delay or hesitation. Instantly, which refers to the school year following promptly the end of their college tenure. Mandating service immediately after teacher training infringes on individuals' freedom to choose where and how they want to work. Teachers, like professionals in other fields, should have the right to decide where they apply their skills after the completion of their education. It also raises the question of why the government's poor management of the education sector should result in forcing persons to work in the sector. With the major teacher migration crisis that Jamaica has experienced in the last couple of years, deeper evaluation of the education sector should be considered to find the reason for the shortage in the first place. Mr. Speaker, I would like to share this quote from Mr. Ricardo Bennett, principal of Sam Sharp Teachers College, with the Jamaica Observer on September 17, 2024. We must respond financially as it relates to compensation. We must respond to better working conditions, more resources for our institutions. He shared this as he suggested possible solutions for both teacher retention and improving enrollment to the teacher colleges to the government. He went on to say that teachers should feel valued and their emotional and social needs catered to. This shows that the issue within the Jamaican education system runs deeper than simply finding teachers. 71.4% of respondents in the Caribbean Center for Educational Planning 2020 research reports low salaries as the reason for migration. 56.3% said it was because of lack of resources. Poor working conditions accounted for 43.8%. Dissatisfaction with education system was the reason for 18.2% of respondents in the Inter-American Development Bank 2018 report. With the statistics highlighting so many issues in the Jamaican education system, is mandating teachers just leaving teachers' colleges to work in Jamaica the appropriate choice? I think not. The education system is shambles, and unless we address the root cause, then any other system put in place will just work for a short period of time. Let us not treat the education system as how we treat our Jamaican roads. Patch the potholes and wait for them to deteriorate, instead of resurfacing the road when it would be less expensive in the long run. Forcing teachers into mandatory service could negatively affect their motivation and performance, as they may feel coercing to working in areas or schools where they have no personal or professional interest. Teachers who are compelled to serve in particular regions or under difficult circumstances may not give their best effort, leading to poor educational outcomes for students. The government should also think of this. Imagine persons who have built a life in a particular place, but due to this mandatory service, they're placed at a school very far from their homes and is forced to uproot their life and move, losing their comfort, the life they have worked so hard to build, and the convenience they can afford, and possibly their safety. Ryan and Desi 2000 shows that intrinsic motivation, which is when individuals are motivated by personal interest or internal goals, leads to better job performance. Forcing individuals to mandatory service can dilute the quality of teaching if individuals are not genuinely committed to the roles they are assigned. The principal of Sam Sharp Teachers College, Ricardo Bennett, stated on January 19, 2023, in a Gleaner article that teaching was not his first choice, nor second choice, but his third choice. He ended up going down the route of teaching rather than engineering due to financial limitations. However, his love for the profession blossomed and his motivation was cultivated through his autonomy to navigate his circumstances. Mr. Bennett's story is evidence that when the teaching profession is driven by passion and motivation rather than obligation, beautiful things can happen. When prospective teachers recognize the limitations that this policy holds, the applications for teachers' colleges could potentially decrease significantly, as persons do not want to commit to mandatory service, especially those students who are fresh out of high school. Imagine this same principal deciding not to go into the teaching profession because he did not want to be tied down during his early adult life, where he has the dreams and abilities to do whatever he would like. Teachers may already face high levels of stress and burnout, especially when they're placed in underserved or rural areas with fewer resources and support. Adding a mandatory service requirement could exacerbate these issues, leading to a high burnout rate in the teaching profession, which would contradict any potential benefits of such a policy. Implementing a mandatory service period for teachers immediately after leaving teachers' college is a rash decision made by the government in an attempt to solve the issue of their poor management and allocation of resources. Mandatory service is flawed with potential low retention of teachers and high burnout rates among teachers, as well as other factors that will be explored by the second speaker. It is clear that mandatory service is not the right move. Here the opposition rests.
Hello? Am I audible? No? Can you hear me now?
Test, test.
Just give our
Sorry for the technical everybody. I'll invite now the second proposition speaker to continue the proposition substantive. Here, here.
Here, here.
Good morning, moderator, honorable judges, worthy opponents, and esteemed audience. Picture this. A new generation of educators, not just flying abroad, but soaring at home, igniting change, inspiring minds, and laying the foundation of a brighter future right here in our own classrooms. Today, as the second speaker of the proposing team, I stand before you championing the introduction of a mandatory service period for no more than 1 year immediately upon leaving the Teachers College. This bold move is not only timely, but essential for the development of our human capital, the upliftment of our communities, and by extension, the advancement of our nation. Moderator, when we speak of human capital, we are referring to the knowledge, skills, and experience possessed by an individual, seen in economic terms as valuable assets. Teachers, the sculptors of young minds, are the architects of this capital. Yet, how do you ensure that this invaluable resource is effectively and efficiently utilized? A mandatory service period. This is like an internship where young teachers hone their pedagogical skills and gain real-world experiences in the classroom. It also coincides with Gary Becker's theory, which states that the essence of human capital development requires education plus training and, you've guessed it, experience. Moderator, the opposition may contend that mandatory service will restrict teachers' opportunity to pursue positions in foreign countries. However, imperative evidence is present supporting that advantages of mandatory teacher services are here. A classic example, moderator, is in South Korea, where the International Youth Fellowship Program ensures that graduates serve their communities in meaningful ways before venturing into private sectors and overseas. This has strengthened the teaching profession in South Korea, giving young teachers hands-on experience while simultaneously enriching the community. Does it stop them from excelling globally? Absolutely not. In fact, they are prepared and marketable abroad because they have real-world experience, a sense of civil duty, and a track record of community service. Besides, South Korea's IYS shows us that when structured properly, these programs create pride and purpose. My worthy opponents, empowered teachers find inspiration in their work, not bitterness. This is about leveling the playing field so every child, whether in Kingston or Clarendon, has access to quality education. And who says you can't do both? After their mandatory service, teachers are still free to pursue further education and international opportunities. In fact, their experiences will make them more desirable for higher studies and employment. Jamaica benefits, and so do they. But first, mandatory service to the country must be the start. Ladies and gentlemen, this could be Jamaica's solution for maximizing our teaching potential. By training new teachers into new communities, we retain over 800 potential immigrant educators while empowering individuals and transforming educational districts. This is crucial for rural schools facing teacher shortages. David Cole's theory emphasized that concrete experience is essential for mastering learning. The mandatory service is a lasting investment. Empowered teachers lead to empowered students and ultimately an empowered nation. To my worthy opponents, you speak so much of freedom and potential and missed opportunities in foreign lands, but yet I cannot help but wonder if the opportunities in these countries constitute a dream or a nightmare for our immigrants. Something to think about, right? In the meantime, my fair opponents, consider this. The concept of mandatory service is not foreign in Jamaica. In fact, let me remind you that Jamaica's own history during Michael Manley's tenure, he not only established Labor Day dedicated to national service, but also implemented a groundbreaking policy in the 1970s for students who benefited from the free education program. These students, upon failing their O-level exams, were required to serve a 2-year period teaching in primary schools, allowing them another chance to qualify for A-levels or technical schools. Guess what? It worked. This approach unified the nation, boosted skills, and fostered a generation of Jamaicans deeply committed to national progress. This wasn't resentment, that was patriotism in action, inspired by Manley's vision and the fast-approaching vision of 2030. This government moderator is eager to revive the concept through the mandatory service for teachers in a targeted approach to address the areas in dire need of educational support and in rural areas that need the help. Let's talk facts, guys. Finland has a similar service-oriented teaching system. And guess what? Their teachers stay in the profession because they understand the deeper value of what they're contributing to society, not merely for the salary. It's called professional fulfillment. Mandatory service offers invaluable experience. Now, imagine Jamaica adopting this model where teachers serve as beacons of change in their respective communities. These teachers will not only impart knowledge, but also mentor, nurture, and inspire the next generation of leaders. The benefits are clear. Enhanced teaching quality, improved educational outcomes, and a stronger national identity. Let's not clip the wings of possibility, but rather strengthen the roots of national pride and responsibility. Thank you.
Thank you, Speaker. We'll move on now to the second opposition speaker that will close off the first half of the stage. Hear, hear.
I heard my proposition speak about professional fulfillment. I'd like to see you go to the supermarket and use the professional fulfillment to pay for your groceries or to pay your bills. Freedom is never voluntarily given by the oppressors. It must be demanded by the oppressed. These words by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. resonate powerfully today, especially as we address this proposal for mandatory service terms for newly qualified teachers. In the 21st century, it is astonishing that we are forced to revisit these words to describe a policy that is in effect strips our educators of choice. Our teachers already face immense challenges, low wages, destructive classrooms, and inadequate resources, and extended hours. We stand in solidarity with them, calling for their freedom to be upheld, not restricted by compulsory service that mandates. Honorable judges, opposition, valued audience, good day. As the second speaker for the opposition, I will further reinforce why introducing a mandatory service period for teachers right after college is not only an ineffective approach, but one that could worsen the challenges faced by our education sector. Our first speaker has laid out the issues of forced service and the root cause of teacher shortages, emphasizing the detrimental effects on teacher autonomy and morale. Today, I will focus on the potential decline in enrollment at teacher training colleges, the impact on the diversity of the teaching workforce, and the unintended consequences that mandatory service could have on our future educators. Mr. Speaker, let us consider what a mandatory service requirement would signal to potential teaching candidates. Imagine, you are a young Jamaican, passionate about education, and eager to make a difference, but the prospect of being compelled to work in specific conditions, regardless of your personal or professional aspirations, awaits you after graduation. Is this environment inviting, or is it discouraging? For many, it will feel like a disincentive, we're already facing teacher shortage. Creating more barriers will only push aspirant teachers to pursue other professions or to study abroad, where they have more control over their careers. This policy, therefore, could ultimately shrink the pipeline of prospective teachers entering the system and puts a timer on those in the system as it anticipates their chance to leave, worsening the shortage rather than alleviating it. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, mandatory service does not account for diverse circumstances and backgrounds of our potential teachers. Not all students entering Teachers College come from the same socio-economic or personal circumstances. Some may have family obligations or health concerns that make relocating to underserved areas particularly challenging. Others may already possess specific career goals, such as specializing in early childhood education, which may not align with the demands of mandatory service placement. By enforcing a one-size-fits-all policy, we risk excluding or discouraging candidates from varied backgrounds who would otherwise bring diverse perspectives and skills into the classroom. Mr. Speaker, this policy risks eroding diversity within the teaching workforce, which is essential to meeting the educational needs of our diverse student population. A system that fails to recognize and support the unique needs of its educators cannot expect to retain those best suited for the profession. The proposition has yet to explain how this policy could retain a diverse teaching workforce or attract a new talent into the field. Another critical flaw with the mandatory service is that it places an undue focus on quantity over quality. Yes, mandatory service might force more teachers into the classroom temporarily, but will it create a stable, thriving educational system in the long term? Evidence suggests the opposite. One has to ask whether our government has truly considered the implications of implementing mandatory service. For teachers, especially when we look at the failed outcomes in countries with similar policies. In Ghana, for instance, the National Service Schemes, NSS, requires all university graduates, including teachers, to complete a one-year national service before entering into their chosen fields. This has led to the chronic teacher shortage in rural areas. Teachers assigned to remote locations often immediately leave after their mandatory service. Low commitment levels. Many teachers serve out of obligation, not passion, leading to disengage and decline in teaching quality and the students' outcomes. Forcing people into roles they are not motivated for can undermine educational outcomes and lead to a cycle of short-lived, disengaged professionals rather than the dedicated, high-quality educators our students need. Let's remember that students deserve motivated, engaged teachers who are dedicated to their growth and well-being. Compelling teachers to work against their will, especially in challenging conditions, undermine the quality of education these students receive. This mandatory service proposal overlooks the real issues at hand, such as the inadequate salaries, the resource scarcity, and the poor working conditions. Fixing these issues is the only way to encourage teachers willingly to invest their skills into our country. To conclude, Mr. Speaker, forcing new teachers into mandatory service is a short-sighted and counterproductive solution that threatens to diminish enrollment in teaching colleges, limit the diversity and the quality of our teachers, and destabilize our already fragile education system. Instead, let us address the core issues, respect the autonomy of teachers, and create an environment.
Thank you.
The opposition rests.
Okay. Begin now the cross-section period, starting with the opposition team posing questions to the proposition team. You have 5 minutes. You have 20 seconds to ask questions, opposition, and you have 45 seconds to respond, opposition. Time begins now.
So our first question to the proposition is relating to your volunteer. How is volunteerism? How is it volunteerism if it is mandated?
Thank you for that question, my worthy opponent. Listen, it's not looking at it as if we're sending you to Haiti to look for barbecue or sending you to Iraq to fight wars. We are sending you into classrooms that you grew up in and future generations are growing up in. You cannot find it in yourself, worthy opponents, to give back to your community in a profession that you are going into?
How will a one-year period, as your first speaker suggested, prevent teacher migration?
A one-year period per se won't prevent a teacher from boarding a plane and go seek education opportunities elsewhere, but will also give them a different perspective. Simply enough, teaching practice is not enough. The 1 week or 2 weeks per year, or it increases as you go by, but that is simply not enough. When we're in the classroom, the students know that we're assessed, so they tend to behave. Also, they don't see us as real teachers, but when we go out there and we're employed, we'll see students from a different light. They will also see us from a different perspective. So going out there for this 1 year will give you the real world, will give you a taste of this profession. Then you'll be better able to make a decision whether or not this is for you.
Thank you, Speaker. Thank you.
All right, so how would a mandatory service period address teacher shortages in underserved areas? And in your sense of the argument, is it the most effective solution?
Yes, I would say that this solution is effective, and our mandate will assist with the teacher shortage, rather than going to find a retired teacher to disturb them from their duly rest. We can use these graduates that are just leaving high school to fill these gaps, and we're not sending you out to parishes 2 miles from you or 10 miles. We're putting you in your own communities to give back to a community that you came from.
So two things. First, how are you going, if me and this lady and half of the population, the teacher population is coming from Shackleton, Clarendon, how are you going to put all of us in the same community? And we're all graduating at once.
Alright, so you won't necessarily be placed at the same school. For example, here in Chapel Clarendon, there are neighboring schools close by that we could split it at with the students to send you here, you over there, but it's still within close proximity of where you live. Not necessarily directly in that community, but in close proximity to the community.
All right, so what incentives or benefits, because you're saying that you're going to implement this mandatory service period for 1 year. 1 year, sorry. So what are the incentives or the benefits that will be provided during this mandatory service period to motivate teachers?
Alright, so thank you so much for that question, my worthy opponent. So if you were listening during my first speech, you would be getting twice the minimum wage, 110% of the minimum wage, so that's one benefit. You're getting insurance coverage as well. Yes, minimum wage, that was mentioned, as well as, to picture it, how many graduates immediately after are able to get that? So you are being compensated and you're not spending unnecessary and fear because you're being placed in a community base. So we're close proximity. So those are 3 benefits right there for our graduates during this mandatory period, as well as your nation building.
Thank you, Speaker. Next question.
So you're telling me that I'm going to be getting twice the money that let me not say uneducated, but a person without a degree, unskilled person, I'm going to be getting twice that amount. Wow. So nice, right?
Thank you, Speaker. Rephrase the question. That wasn't quite a question.
You said that you will be giving teachers 110% of minimum wage. Do you think that serves as motivation for teachers? So 110% of
Thank you, Speaker. I'll let you respond.
Let's not look at it in a way that you're getting 110% over the minimum wage. Look at it as an opportunity to garner experience that you will be needing in future endeavors. Remember, these experiences build on your marketability, wherever you are going. Also,
when you're tasked to do voluntary service, in these same institutions, when we're seeking monetary help, they ask you to do voluntary service, it's completely free. Any other voluntary service is completely free. We're giving you a stipend to assist you.
Thank you. That's the end of the opposition question. 5 minutes. We'll move on now to the propositions questions to the opposition. Just a reminder, you have 20 seconds to ask, 45 seconds to respond. Time begins now.
my question is, why enter a profession that is offering you a situation where you can garner experience and call it being forced and not being an advantage? What would you, why?
First of all, you are proposing that you implement mandatory service. Period. People aren't coming into the profession to serve mandatory service because according to the same labor laws that you would have mentioned in your presentation, it allows professional autonomy. So there should be no policy of no mandatory service in the teaching profession because there should be professional autonomy where the teacher chooses where they want to go, who they want to work for, where they want to be engaged.
Thank you, Speaker.
Can the opposition highlight any breach of the ILO labor directives and labor laws in the case of mandatory service?
You're limiting the teacher's professional autonomy, and the labor law guarantees professional autonomy, even though you are paying them. And to circumvent the whole idea of the labor law, even so, you're putting in people to fill shortages for 1 year. After 1 year, majority of the teacher population gone. So at the end of the day, you still would have ended up back in the same problem, same issue that you started out with. And the quality of your education system will be degraded. You have to look at these things.
Thank you, Speaker.
You had mentioned that we are forcing people into roles that they're not passionate about due to the circumstances that they're going over to face. Alright, so let's say this was not mandated. Why are you studying for 4 or 5 years to go into face these same conditions?
Thank you, Speaker.
Very good question. Yes, we're studying to go into these conditions. However, you mandating us to go into these conditions. It is going to arise the rebellious nature in us because we are free individuals, free professionals who would have paid our millions of dollars, $3 and $4 million to get our degrees. And that's all. Whether you paid for education or didn't pay for education, whether we want to go into the condition or not, you don't have the right in any circumstance to limit the professional autonomy of the teacher. And that is the point that the opposition is.
So do you see that this is a great benefit solely because the leader, government that is set over the country instructed you to give service? You are simply rebelling because it is an instruction.
No, the government does not have that right to tell anybody where to work and what to do. We are free people. Right? And even going beyond that point, you, the government, you're limiting the quality of your education system. You are degrading the quality of education will be provided because you are undermotivated, unempowered, unpassionate.
Thank you, Speaker.
You had mentioned that this mandatory service erodes diversity. Could you tell us how?
Can you repeat the question, please?
You had mentioned that mandatory service erodes diversity. Can you explain how?
Because certain skill sets that you need in your system after that 1 year period, due to you having overworked and stressed and stretched our teachers so thin, they will leave your system. So those artistic talent, the scientific minds, the engineering brilliant. All of those will leave your system because you have stretched them thin, nothing is left in them, and so they will not want to stay in your system.
So will the cause of this system be teachers as such departing the economy or departing the country rather before even allowing it a chance to develop any
Sorry,
substance?
Speaker, that's not quite a question. Could you rephrase? Quickly rephrase, Speaker. You're running out of time.
I am asking, isn't the cause of this situation that you're so privy of, right? The situation that you're going into, isn't it the cause of teachers like such that you're describing that is causing this erosion, as you claim?
Speaker. Thank you.
The cause of this very issue that we are in is the government's poor management of the education system. And as such, the government's poor management of the education system should not create urgency for our trained professionals to want to come and become band-aids so that you can solve problems. You need to solve the root causes, the root problems, the root issues, and then we can come back and have a conversation. But mandatory service is not the solution.
Opponents, don't you think that
Thank you, Speaker. We're now going to give our speakers 1 minute to prepare their reply speeches, after which we'll hear first from the opposition reply speaker. Okay, that's it for prep time. We move on now to the rebuttalist on the opposition bench. You're here.
Honorable Chair, esteemed panel, and my fellow debaters on both sides and the audience, good morning or good day. As the third speaker for the opposition, I am here to reinforce the core reasons we oppose the introduction of a mandatory service period for teachers immediately upon leaving Teachers College. Through this presentation, I'll recap our key points, provide additional refutation to the proposition, and underline why, despite any potential benefits that were suggested, mandatory service remains deeply flawed as a solution. To the refutation, the proposition made points about nation building, that implementing this mandatory service will improve building, it will increase productivity, and it will still loyal citizenship. Well, while it engenders citizenship, how can you measure this loyalty or even know that the service that will be provided by our teachers is even genuine? You're talking about productivity. Well, even when we currently in our system, we don't have a mandatory service period for teachers, there is still productivity in our system, so circumvents your point. And you're saying nation building. Well, even outside of that, we still have nation builders, teachers who are contributing to the cause of education, and that is why many of us are still here today. So mandatory service is not necessary for that. What the government needs to understand is that your poor management of the education system should not create urgency for teachers who would have trained and become qualified with their money, millions of dollars, for you to tell them that they must serve mandatorily. We stand firmly against mandatory the mandatory service proposal for several reasons. First, we highlighted the value of personal freedom and professional autonomy. It is necessary that the teacher, being a trained professional, has professional autonomy. Second, we raise the concern for quality and motivation, forcing newly trained teachers to serve where they may not wish to serve undermines their drive and intrinsic motivation, which then impacts the quality of education that they will be offering in the system, and therefore leads to poorer outcomes for students and ultimately the education system on a whole. We further emphasize the point of burnout, where within this 1 year period, it can be very demanding, because in your head you want to get back what you would have given to the teachers in some way, I don't know, and a lot of them are in college struggling, don't have any food and all of these things, and you want to mandate them to work, particularly in underserved regions with limited resources and support. And this is why a lot of our teachers leave, because the classrooms, the very system that you want to create, doesn't have the necessary resources and facilities to enable the implementation of your 5E strategies and a SWORE model and this and that and terror. Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition argued that it addresses teacher shortages in underserved rural areas. However, we question the sustainability of this approach, because a mandatory service, and in previous debates we talk about imposition, mandatory service is only a temporary solution that does not address the root causes of these shortages, such as the reduced investment of the government in education, in tertiary education, the poor working conditions, the infrastructure, and the lack of long-term support. And the big one, you don't pay teachers the money that they deserve. Furthermore, the proposition may argue that mandatory service instills a sense of dignity, productivity, and loyal citizenship. Well, we argue against this, because when a sense of service is valued, though it's valuable, it should be fostered through inspiration and not compulsion or mandate. Lastly, they made mention to this being implemented in other fields. Well, we cannot ignore those other fields, because it is flexible in those other fields. And so you also mentioned Michael Manley's policy. Well, Michael Manley was giving people second chance. The teachers don't want second chance, them have them degree already. So confusing mandatory service with community service and voluntary service is not the basis of this argument. We don't want to mandate anybody. Give them the professional freedom, the resources, the capacity that is necessary in order to effectively carry out their duties within the education system. So, Mr. Speaker, honorable panel, and our audience, we stand here to defend the idea that teachers, like all professionals, deserve the right to choose where they want to contribute and how they contribute to our society. Coercion, mandate, compulsion should have no place in our profession, that is the education profession.
Speaker, thank you. We move on now to the proposition reply, who will close off the debate for us this afternoon. Hear, hear.
It's better to use these brilliant teacher graduates as a band-aid per se to fill these gaps rather than our teachers making headlines after a heart attack. You have also shared that you did the degree with your money. A lot of these teachers flock the government for scholarships to pursue the said degree, even though the criteria is that they're bonded for 5 long years. Moderator, respective adjudicators, my transparent government, my worthy opponents, good afternoon. We, the proposition, have laid out with conviction a procedural case in favor of a 1-year mandatory service period for teachers immediately following their graduation from Teachers College. This stance, we believe, promotes national identity, human capital gains, and experiential learning to make teacher graduates competitive. In pursuit of Vision 2030, by enhancing the workforce, we're making Jamaica the place to live, work, raise families, and do business. Let our graduate teachers learn to dance a yard before they dance abroad. This proposal is not merely about service, but it's also about playing our part in advancing the welfare of the whole human race, beginning right here at a national level. Our Prime Minister made it clear that mandatory service has empowered nations like Rwanda, Nigeria, Korea, and even a democratic socialist Jamaica under Michael Manley. This policy is about giving back to a country that invested in our education, in your education, and fostering a culture of passion and commitment. We will not carbon copy past programs, but learn from them. Our 1-year plan of mandatory service involves providing national insurance contributions and a stipend that is significantly above the minimum wage. The teacher will be placed in community-based situations and NGOs that will foster new skills through experiential learning to enhance their human capital reflected in their resumes. The level of occupational safety risk with mandatory service is on par with teaching practicum, and our graduates will be sent in their nearby communities in the parish to develop knowledge and social bonds. The opposition claim mandatory service limits teachers' freedom and opportunities, but the government demonstrated that it builds national pride and allows educators to give back to the country that invested in them. Constitutional changes and a draft bill will be introduced in the lower house with the intention of becoming the law with parliamentary approval, which involves all MPs and senators. The opposition opined that service within Jamaica restricts teachers' potential for international experience due to low pay grade, but we, the government, objectively prove that a 1-year commitment enriches their human capital and resilience, qualities that will benefit them and our nation regardless of where their careers lead afterwards. The opposing bench contended that mandatory service is a short-sighted and counter-protected step, tying individuals to a limiting policy, but we confirm that this is a forward-thinking initiative to unleash enhanced empathy. In the hallowed halls of St. Joseph Teachers College, I am reminded of the need for pastoral care as graduate teachers and to church my opponents. We cannot aim to be qualified alone. Don't focus on the monetary earnings to come on the 25th of each month. Focus on the true passion and calling for developing the nation's future generations. We must commit to community engagement and love for others. Which reminds me of 1 Corinthians chapter 13. Though I speak with the tongues of men and angels, but have not love, I am a clanging cymbal and a sounding brass. Amen, amen, and amen.
Debaters, that was a really good match. I'll invite now the speakers to shake hands as the adjudicators go off to decide the winner.
Amen. Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. You are all dead to us.
But just every teacher called me and then me give money and I said, sure, no problem.
Yeah, this is what they support.
I'm tired. But I'll come to you today. You know somebody tomorrow? We have test Wednesday and we have test Thursday. What's one of the teacher here? Guys, I miss that child here anymore. Who win other day in the match? When we come Thursday, between first and that's terrible.
Good afternoon, everyone. We're just going to invite those on the outside just to make your way into this space, please. We're asking everyone just to sit as we will be hearing a response from the judges. Ready to respond? They will give an overview first. As usual, we won't announce the winner until the end of the second match, but you will get a response.
Good afternoon. Right. So, for those of you who were paying attention some minutes ago, you may have noticed that we had a debate a while ago. Yes. And debates have 2 teams and 1 winner. I am here to tell you what happened in the debate and what's the winner. You'll hear that later. But let's look at what the teams presented to us. The team from the proposing side, that is Sam Sharp Teachers College, introduced us the idea that mandated service for teachers gives us 2 things generally. Personal development in the form of global marketability, from understanding the value of teaching in the form of community development. It also gives us a sort of solution to our teacher shortage problem in the country. The opposition tells us differently. They say first and foremost that mandating anything to teachers, mandating anything to recent graduates is sort of morally wrong. They tell us that it's sort of a plaster to the teacher issue, and they tell us further that the core issues that exist in educational ministry need to be addressed first instead of trying to create this sort of quasi-solution to the teacher shortage issue. We think there are things that either team could improve on. We think from the opposing team, especially in the question and answer period, having more, let's say, structured responses to what the proposing team gave us would have benefited you more. Identifying the logical gaps in their argumentation instead of just broadly responding to the ideas that the proposition gave us, right? Something that counted against you was when you were describing the negatives of mandated service, you kind of just insisted that it would be out of the way of certain graduates and it would have these sort of negative effects on certain graduates instead of engaging with what the proposition gave us and engaging with the best case scenario that proposition has, which is that persons are able to serve within their communities, they're able to serve within their projected career goals, which is teaching, and to serve community members and individuals and give them some sort of personal value, right? Engaging with the best case scenario as an educator, speaking as an educator rather, really bumps the team up. And it identifies that they're able to engage with the ideas fulsomely and not just a negative materialization or a counter-contextualization of what the actual argument is. On the side of Sam Sharp, we think that being more responsive would have helped you a lot as well. You generally stayed within the ambit or the general vicinity of your argument, you didn't step outside of it very much. We think that engaging with some of the fundamental refutations from opposition, like the idea of limiting persons' freedoms, the idea of forcing graduates to step outside of their personal and career goals, the idea of addressing the more core fundamental issues within educational ministry, that have helped you more as well. But you think both teams did a very good job at presenting their ideas, at demarking rebuttals. We think that both teams did a very good job at, they had lovely style. I quite liked the reply speeches of the question and answer section. I think we all did actually. And I'm looking forward now to hearing the next set of debaters coming up from GC Foster College and St. Joseph's respectively.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Feel lively, man. Look like. I'll put it back on. I'm now going to invite the members of the debating team from the St. Joseph Teachers College to take their seats. They will be proposing today.
The brown and the cream.
Let me invite the members of the GC for they will be opposing today. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for both debating teams. Gentlemen, ladies, teams, all the best.
Can I have them cross the Red Sea, GC?
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our second match of the day between the GC Foster College and the St. Joseph's College. Once again, the same rules apply. The first speakers will have 7 minutes within which to make their submissions. The second speakers will have 6 minutes. We will go to a cross-sectioning period for 5 minutes. And then we will have the reply speeches for 5 minutes each. The first and last minutes of your speaking times are double protected, during which no point of information will be permitted. I am Calisette Vassal, the Programs Manager for the Jamaican Association for Debating and Empowerment, and the A-ranked adjudicator, who will be serving as your chief adjudicator for this match, and I will allow my following adjudicators to introduce themselves.
Dudley McLean, Church Teachers College.
Matthew White, also from Jade, Wellness Support Specialist.
Kilak Harding, Church Teachers College.
Now that we've settled those housekeeping matters, I'm going to invite the Prime Minister to make her way to the podium. Please make her welcome. Here.
Honorable judges, esteemed members of the opposition, and our attentive listeners and audience, good afternoon. Today the government stands in unwavering support of the motion. This House would place children in state care when factors within their family, community, etc. predispose them to violent behavior. We, the government, believe that Jamaica has a duty to protect vulnerable children exposed to circumstances to foster violence and abuse. Intervention is not merely a choice, it's a necessity to safeguard the future and the well-being of our society. The problem is urgent. Many children are stuck in harmful environments where violence is normal, leaving them physically, emotionally, and socially hurt. They grow up in homes and communities filled with abuse, gang culture, and neglect. The current child protection system in Jamaica today, run by the Child Protection and Family Services Agency, does not adequately protect these children or act quickly enough. This failure creates ongoing cycles of trauma that often lead to them into troubled lives. Studies conducted by the Child Protection and Family Service Agencies shows that children exposed to such environments are more likely to experience mental challenges, academic setbacks, and violent behaviors themselves. This isn't just a theory, it's the painful reality faced by many Jamaican children today. Cases like the tragic death of 4-year-old Nevalisha Campbell, who suffered abuse within her own household, underscores the failings of our existing intervention system, which often waits too long or acts too late. The problem with the current model that we have for dealing with children who are exposed to these situations that predispose them to violent behavior is that it focuses on the family and ignores one of the fundamental concepts in children's rights law, which is the best interest of the child. Moreover, this also affects the wider community. This House believes that the state is not doing enough to remove the children from these dangerous situations. So if this model does not work for the children themselves, then the ripple effect ends up happening where they become violent and a nuisance to the society. Do we want another Lee Boyd Malvo situation? I don't think so. At just 17, Malvo was involved in the 2002 Washington DC sniper attacks, influenced by his guardian, John Allen Muhammad. His troubled upbringing, which included neglect, parental instability, and constant exposure to violence, shows the need for better care. Placing him in state care would have given him a structured environment, access to mental health resources, and positive role models. Early intervention, therefore, would have addressed his trauma and kept him away from crime. By prioritizing the best interests of vulnerable children, we can prevent similar tragedies in the future. So, in light of this House would place children in state care when factors within their family, community, etc. predispose them to violent behavior. Our goal is not to remove children from their homes on a whim, but to intervene only in cases where there is substantial, verified risk to the child's safety and well-being. We envision a Jamaica where no child is left to suffer because the system failed to act. Let's clarify a few terms. Children include minors below the legal age 18 years old who depend on adult protection. By state care, the government means we refer to a structured, secure environment managed by trained professionals who ensure children's physical, emotional, and social well-being are being met. According to the CPFSA, these include foster care, adoption services, and place of safety. When we predispose them to violent behavior, we refer to conditions that expose children to violence as a norm, increasing their likelihood of adopting or being victimized by such behavior. Our proposed model for change emphasizes a thorough process where social services and child psychologists will assess each case, working collaboratively with families and communities. Intervention would only occur when high-risk factors are present and confirmed through this professional assessment. In cases where families do not comply or actively obstruct intervention, legal measures will ensure that the child's safety remains a priority, including, if necessary, court-mandated relocation of the child to state care. Children will stay in state care only as long as necessary, with regular evaluation and an emphasis on returning them to their families once the state agencies determine that it is now safe for them to return. Additionally, in our model, we will provide more financial and human resources to state agencies so that they can act quicker and more effectively to these situations, as opposed to what exists in the status quo today. The funding for this initiative, my opposition may ask, will be carried out through a combination of local, national, and international resources, like government funding grants, international aid grants. Our advocacy today stems from a commitment to protecting our nation's children. This change will break the cycle of violence and neglect that damages young lives, promoting a healthier, more resilient society. As first speaker, I will address the two key points in our arguments. My second speaker will reaffirm our stance, and my third speaker will fortify our argument. All of this is grounded in two principles: the best interest of the child principle and the parents portray principle, which my second speaker will explain, and how they are connected with the duty of care, with that duty of care that is on the state. My first point: the damage to children exposed in violent factors. The current system fails to protect children from violent environments, leaving traumatized and more likely to adopt violent behaviors. Research from the Child Protection and Family Service Agency shows that children in violent homes face mental health challenges such as anxiety, depression, and even PTSD. And this was our annual report from 2021. Placing them in state care then placing them in state care will provide counseling, education, and a stable environment, helping them to break free from these cycles and benefiting society overall. Second point, impact on Jamaica's levels of violent youth, exposure to violence in families and communities.
Thank you, Speaker. We thank the Prime Minister for her submission, and now we're going to invite the Leader of the Opposition to his or her case. Please make them welcome.
Members of the House, adjudicators, and my opponents. As the first speaker of today's debate, I will lay the foundation for our arguments as we stand in opposition to the notion that children predisposed to violent behavior should be placed in state care. The opposition defines mood as children who are inclined towards violent behavior because of family and community backgrounds to be placed in the care of the public authority. In this speech, I will present the tragic realities of state care, highlight the failures of the institutional facilities, and discuss the impact on children placed in the child care system. The second speaker will be restoring the focus to the main issue at hand, questioning the practicality of such interventions and financially, and suggesting alternative interventions. Hell on earth. This is the descriptive language used by Lisa Williams as she recounted her harrowing and traumatic ordeal as previous ward of the state. The cuts and bruises etched on her face are haunting reminders of the so-called care she received. Lisa's experience, which began at age 11, was featured in the Gleaner on July 2018. Lisa was placed in the state care after being sexually abused by a relative. Initially, the new environment felt almost utopic to her. However, the novelty wore off, her situation worsened, and she became target of older wards. The state responded to her complaints by not addressing the issues, but by transferring her to a new facility. At the new facility, the abuse intensified. Male staff members watched her and their other female wards as they showered. She witnessed a child being brutally beaten by a staff member. She herself was struck in the head with the heel of a shoe. Her back was slammed against a table, and other wards would squeeze her throat and pelt her with stones. Staff members used information from her private file to humiliate and abuse her. Although she reported these incidents to the visiting officers from the CDA and pleaded for a family visitation, her cries for help were met by empty promises. Lisa's only resort was self-defense, but her efforts to protect herself led to cruel punishment, food deprivation. And what was worse, she was forced to watch as others ate while she went hungry. Isolated and desperate, she made 3 suicide attempts. Her escape only came when she aged out of the facility. Reflecting on her time there, she lamented, "I hate it there. Better they had left me where I was." She experienced the grim reality of jumping from the frying pan into the fire. Members of the House, is the story a bitter, ungrateful woman exaggerating for the sake of sensationalism? Far from it. Lisa's ordeal represents the lived reality of many children under state care. It reveals the deep and pervasive systemic flaws inherent in Jamaica's child care system, as documented in almost 2 decades. Members of the House, to evaluate a system, we must begin by examining its track record. Just as one assesses a company's track record before investing in its stock, we must scrutinize the performance of child care facilities to evaluate how well they have lived up to this critical responsibility of caring for our nation's most vulnerable assets, its children. Only then can we truly respond to the motion at hand. This review will span a 19-year-old period. Our investigation begins with the Keating Report of 2003, commissioned by the then P.J. Patterson-led People's National Party administration. This report exposed severe deficiencies within Jamaica's state care system. It revealed widespread neglect, abuse, and the absence of individualized care plans. It documented cases where children were subjected to corporal punishment and their complaints ignored. This fostered a toxic culture of normalized abuse. emboldening staff to act without conscience. Hence, instead of sanctuaries, these facilities became places of trauma. The report forces us to confront a critical question. How can we justify placing vulnerable children, including those with predispositions towards violent behavior, in facilities that not only fail to protect them, but actively contribute to their declines? These institutions are meant to rehabilitate and nurture, yet they expose children to harm, perpetuating cycles of trauma and instability. It becomes evident that state care facilities are not the safe havens they claim to be. Instead, they're breeding grounds for neglect and abuse. The lack of accountability among staff is especially troubling, as it signals systemic dysfunction rather than isolated incidents. Can we truly claim to care for already vulnerable children by placing them under the care of such institutions? Despite the revelation of the Keating report in January 2012, no meaningful changes were made. 3 years later, in 2006, Jamaicans for Justice presented a report to the Inter-American Commission on Human Rights. Once more, it highlighted the recurring decimals: system neglect, abuse, and a weak oversight within state-run facilities. It reported that monitoring processes lack accuracy, leading to the underreported incidents of abuse. Facilities like the Morton Boys Home and the Granville Place of Safety repeatedly ignored children's complaints and operated in unsanitary conditions. Corporal punishment was common, and there was no effective mechanism for accountability. A shortage of medical psychological support left children vulnerable to mental health crises, including attempting suicides. One would have hoped for a paradigm shift after these reports, but instead, tragedy struck with the Armadale fire in 2009. The tragic loss of 7 girls in this fire disaster further crystallized the dangerous condition within these institutions: overcrowding, poor management, and the lack of even basic safety standards. Can we, in good conscience, place already vulnerable children in such environments? Placing such children in unstable settings risks not only re-traumatize them, but potentially escalating their violent tendencies. The 2021 CAPRI and 2020 UNICEF reports highlighted the persistent inefficacies of the state-run facilities. They revealed that the child protection and family agencies were severely understaffed, with social workers managing caseloads of upwards of 150 to 200 cases, instead of the recommended 10 to 30 cases. Recurring themes included high levels of physical, emotional, and sexual violence, inadequate mental support, low educational outcomes, and minimal accountability. This level of institutional neglect leads to a lack of proper care and ensures that many remain trapped in the harmful situations. And for children predisposed to violent behavior, being placed in an environment rife with violence and neglect.
Thank you, Speaker.
I rest my case.
We thank the opposition leader for her submission, and now we will return to the proposition page with the Deputy Prime Minister. Please make her welcome. Hear, hear. Before the Deputy Prime Minister begins, the panel would just like to remind both teams that to ask points of information and be encouraging. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges, my worthy opponents, and my fellow debaters, a good afternoon. But before I begin, I would first like to address 2 points that were made by the opposing team. You stated that the current model that we have, the current system, or let me rather say the previous system that we had is insufficient. And I believe that my Prime Minister did go ahead to address this point by acknowledging that our previous system was not adequate, which is why remodeling has taken place and the funding has hence been acquired. You also mentioned that no changes have been made since those unfortunate cases where those children received harm, but this is not so. For example, our therapeutic center that has recently been made, but let us not fret, I will discuss this further down as I address you today. So we're gathered here today to discuss a critical issue affecting our nature's future, the well-being and safety of our children. The motion before us proposes removing children from violent homes to prevent the perpetuance of violence. We firmly believe that this measure is necessary, and I will present not one but two compelling arguments to support this stance. Firstly, our policy to remove children that are predisposed to violence in their family and community is supported by two key principles: the best interest of the child principle and the parents' patrick doctrine, which states that it is our state's duty to care for and ensure that the children's rights are protected. The best interest of the child principle is a cornerstone in family law and child welfare policies, and is also emphasized in the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. It holds that the child's welfare and safety is paramount in all decisions affecting them. When a child's home environment poses a threat of violence, the best interest policy justifies intervention, including state care placements. Another principle to support our policy, as mentioned, is the parents' patrick doctrine, which underlines that it is our state's, I repeat, our state's duty to care for a child and ensure that their rights are protected. This legal principle allows the state to act as the parent of the nation and intervene on behalf of those who cannot protect themselves, including our children. Under this doctrine, the state has the authority and responsibility to ensure the children's rights to safety, health, and well-being are being protected, especially in cases where the parents or guardians are unable or even unwilling to provide the adequate care. Apart from these principles, to further support our stance, let us take a look at the benefits of placing our vulnerable children in state care. Mr. Speaker, exposure to violence in the home can cause irreparable damage to a child's emotional and physical development. Research by the Jamaican Ministry of Health reveals that children exposed to domestic violence are more likely to develop aggressive behaviors, express depression, and struggle with anxiety. A noted study by the University of the West Indies found that 70% of children who witnessed violence in their communities led to an increase in aggression and behavioral problems. By removing these children from harmful environments, we break the cycle of violence and provide them with a safer and more nurturing space to grow. Further, Maslow's hierarchy of needs highlights the importance of meeting the basic needs. As a matter of fact, these basic needs. State care ensures that children receive necessary support addressing deficiencies in their family environment. Secondly, intervention through removal is an effective solution when combined with rehabilitation and support services. Jamaica's Child Protection and Family Services Agency has successfully implemented programs to provide alternative care, counseling, and family reunification services. For example, the Therapeutic Center offers support to vulnerable families addressing underlying issues of violent behavior. It serves as a haven where children can experience growth and transformation and are able to build resilience in the face of adversity. Removing children from violent homes is not merely about the separation, but it's about providing access to resources that foster healing, growth, and positive transformation. In concluding, removing children from violent home environments is a crucial step towards breaking Jamaica's cycle of violence by prioritizing their safety and providing support initiatives. We invest in a brighter, more peaceful future for our nation to ensure that Jamaica is a place of choice to live, work, and raise families and do business we must support the motion that children must be placed in state care when factors within their family and community predispose them to violent behavior.
We thank the Deputy Prime Minister for her mission, and now we're going to invite the Deputy Opposition Leader to make his contribution to today's debate. Please make him welcome. Here.
Before I begin, I'd like to address a key point. The opposition keeps reinstating that it is the duty of Jamaica to protect our children, but what greater step towards this is there than to attack the roots of the issue? Removing the children does not address this issue, but you've yet to speak on the causes. Esteemed judges, my very worthy opponents, and my fellow debaters, good afternoon to you all. As the second speaker of our negative, I will further assert that placing children in state care is not the optimal solution for protecting them from violence. We believe that this approach is impractical at its core and overlooks the deeper complexities of trauma, identity, and systemic flaws in state care, and ignore far more effective approaches in dealing with these issues. Mr. Speaker, consider this. If a leaking roof threatens to flood your home, would you address the problem by merely catching the water in a bucket? Or would you repair the roof itself? In this analogy, placing children in state care is akin to catching water. It is a temporary fix that leaves the root problem unaddressed. This notion that removing a child from their environment automatically addresses the real issues at hand is quite frankly a misguided oversimplification, and that is not where our focus should be. The root causes of violent behavior, poverty, generational trauma, inadequate education, and systemic neglect are not resolved by merely relocating a child. We're simply skipping a step. Studies by the Caribbean Policy Research Institute, CAPRI, consistently highlight that such interventions do not disrupt the cycle of violent behavior. Rather, they displace them. And a system that fails to address these entrenched issues is setting itself up for repeated failure. Ludwig's system theory shows that families and communities are interconnected systems. Placing a child in care, in state care, disrupts one part of that system but ignores the broader societal issues like poverty and community violence, which means a community-based approach addresses these broader connected challenges more effectively. Of course, it can be argued that the time it would take to properly address these issues leaves our children at risk for that time period, and placing them in state care is an immediate intervention. But if we keep applying these quick fix treatments to these perpetual symptoms of much larger issues that are woven deep within the fabric of our society, then we may as well exhaust all our country's budget on building more state care facilities, since no one has the political will to attack these issues at the roots. Let's keep it above. State care is a band-aid solution, and the pathetic attempt from those in authority to absolve themselves from any real responsibility and commitment to sustain the development of our society. On the matter of sustainable development, Mr. Speaker, the proposition's approach of placing children in state care is neither sustainable nor realistic, given the resources it would require. This approach implies that we could simply fill state care facilities with children identified as at risk, erasing their presence from communities as if that would somehow solve the problem. Let's be clear. The conditions that would necessitate such interventions are deeply rooted in economical disadvantaged areas. So then, are we advocating for a future where inner city communities are left without children simply because of systemic issues like poverty and violence? If we essentially a child out of this environment, as you propose, is this really sustainable? Is this really a sustainable approach to the matter when Tanisha from down the street will be pregnant again by next week? Or should we snatch that child up as well? My opponents, where will you put them?
Point of information?
Not accepted. And where do you see this cycle coming to an end? Or should we continue to stretch our already strained budget to facilitate this reactive approach? Jamaica's economy is already strained. The country's current debt Current public debt stands at around 75.3% of the GDP in 2024, according to the World Bank. And the foreign debt was 61.5% of the GDP in 2023, with 98% of that debt is in US dollars. These high debt service costs significantly limits the government spending and can impair growth. Translation, Mr. Speaker, we simply had it. This perspective raises a chilling implication. Removing children isn't a sustainable intervention and does not solve the problem, it just shifts it. If we treat these children as numbers to be removed, we risk perpetuating a cycle of displacement instead of fostering environments where our children can grow and thrive. Mr. Speaker, the proposition's plan to place children in state care due to predispositions towards violence is a reactive approach that ignores deeper systemic issues driving youth instability. Instead of institutionalization, we should invest in holistic community-based solutions that address the root causes of violent behaviors. Research shows that strengthening family support, providing mental health services, and using restorative justice programs offer more sustainable outcomes. This position is further corroborated by John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth, the attachment theory, which suggests that children from secure attachment with primary caregivers, which is crucial for their emotional and social development. Disrupting these attachments by removing children from their facilities, from their families, can lead to negative developmental outcomes, including increased anxiety, attachment disorders, and emotional instability. Instead, interventions could focus on supporting and educating caregivers to create a safe, nurturing environment with this at home. Kinship care is a more culturally appropriate, beneficial alternative to state care. By utilizing traditional practice of child shifting, this approach keeps children within their family network, preserving essential family bonds. Position rests.
Thank the Deputy Opposition Leader for his very spirited submission. And now we're going to go into the cross-questioning segment, which will last for a total of 5 minutes. Questions are not to be asked for longer than 20 seconds. Responses must be given for 45 seconds. We're going to open the cross-questioning segment with the opposition team, who are now invited to pose questions to the proposition team. Thank you.
Is how do we determine when it is safe to return them to their families when the underlying issues have not been addressed?
As mentioned by my first speaker, the issues will be addressed. After the children are taken from their homes, the families will still be in contact with the social services. We will continue to keep an eye on them with their go-ahead, of course. Regular evaluation will be provided, and we will know when exactly to send them home based on the agency's analysis.
Next question, opposition.
All right. How will you plan for integration into society, and how will they cope with potential lifelong stigmatization accrued from state care?
So, as mentioned, there is a therapeutic center that has now been recently created. Allow me to repeat for you. It offers support to vulnerable families, addressing underlying issues driving violent behavior. It serves as a haven where children can experience healing, growth, and transformation to build resilience in the face of the adversities that they have been in, before sending them back out to be with their families.
How do you measure predisposition to violence accurately?
Okay, so the predisposition to violence is based on the analysis by the social services. So it is not us. We are not professionals. Social services has psychologists and everyone else that are in charge of those type of things. They will do the analyzing and then they will give the answers.
Madam Speaker, you just mentioned that we are not professionals. So how is it that you, not a professional, we should take more initiative of vulnerable children into your care?
We are not professionals in analyzing where children stand in their mental health. We are here to protect them, but not analyze them. That is not in our description.
So how are you then able to identify factors that can make from any angle? So how are you then able to identify factors that you think can significantly affect a child's mental health from any angle? And how are you sure that this will work for every child?
That's 2 questions, Speaker. Answer whichever. Okay, repeat it and ask 1 question.
Where are the statistics that exemplify that success in rehabilitation state care society? Where are the statistics that support that that children who come from state care facilities are then able to become productive members of society?
So previous statistics would not work on a newly reformed model of state care, which my first speaker mentioned that we will be promoting or advocating for in order to have all of this success.
That's it. That's it for the proposition's questions. Thank you very much. And now we'll turn over to the opposition. We'll turn over to the proposition team rather, for their set of questions.
My opposition. What specific evidence do you have that suggests keeping children in their family environments is more beneficial than placing them in the state care that factors in their family placing them in state care when factors in their family predispose them to violent behavior?
Repeat that question. Back up towards it.
What specific evidence do you have that suggests keeping children in their family environments is more beneficial than placing them in state care when factors in their family predispose them to violent behavior?
Next question.
How do you assess the risks associated with leaving children in environments that may expose them to violence?
Assessing the risks has to do with the community intervention plans. Assessing the risk. Assessing the risk deals with going into the communities. So we have social workers and we have state trained professionals who are trained at analyzing the environment. And putting measures in place to potentially mitigate these negative outcomes.
Are these the same persons in the state care?
No, these are not the same persons in the state care. These are different trained professionals who are tasked with the decision of whether or not children should be placed in state care. Daycare facilities are merely a point of care and not necessarily something to analyze the systemic issues.
Alright, so next question. What preventative measures would you suggest then to address the factors leading to violent behaviors in families and communities?
As previously stated, community intervention measures like the Reformation Justice or the CSJP, community intervention plans, they were aimed at improving and empowering the family background, which would be the most determinant factor in mitigating these issues.
Alright, can you provide examples where children remain in their family environment despite violent predispositions and thrive?
Opposition, your response to that?
So one example is the CSJP, the Citizen Security and Justice Program, launched in 2001. The CSJP aims to improve community safety and at-risk communities through a combination of crime prevention and justice reform. The CSJP has reported a significant reduction in crime rates in targeted communities and has improved access to justice and community resources. As a result.
Okay, thank you for that response. Now, next question is, at what point do you believe intervention becomes necessary, and what criteria would you suggest to guide that decision?
Intervention should have been necessary long before this debate. What I mean by that is, if we keep arguing that, if we keep treating the symptoms of the issue, which as you propose, is putting the child in state care, this reflects a failure to address the deep-rooted systemic issues. What the mechanism that we would use to assess and attack these issues from the community standpoint is, like I said, we have trained professionals who are tasked analyzing the potential implications of the environment.
Proposition, this will be your last question.
No further questions.
Thank you very much to the proposition and the opposition teams for engaging in a spirited cross-questioning. We're now going to pause for 1 minute to allow the reply speakers to prepare to make their final submissions, close out their respective benches, and ultimately the debate. And that's the minute. So we're now going to go into the reply speeches, starting with the opposition reply speaker. Thank you.
Honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen,
and to my esteemed opponents. Today, my task is to drive home an irrefutable point. Placing children predisposed to violent behavior in state care is not a solution. But frankly, it does more harm than good. It's a misguided shortcut that overlooks the root causes. My colleagues have outlined with crystal clarity how external factors such as poverty, trauma, systemic neglect are the true culprits behind these challenges. So to merely relocate children without addressing these issues is like slapping a band-aid on a broken bone and expecting it to heal. Members of the House, wouldn't you agree that such an approach is woefully inadequate? My colleagues here painted a vivid picture of the horrors within the current state care systems. Horrors no child deserves. We heard about Lisa, who went from one traumatic environment to an even worse one, facing abuse and neglect at every turn. So my esteemed opponents, is it truly humane to place vulnerable children in such conditions and call it care? That must be a joke. And let's not forget the fiscal disaster waiting to happen. As my teammates highlighted, funding for state care is already stretched to its limits. If the systems can barely keep its head above the water with current numbers, how could it possibly sustain an influx of children from vulnerable communities? Throwing more kids into an overwhelmed system is like overloading a lifeboat. It will sink. Members of the audience, the proposition is trying to paint a picture. They are trying to paint state care in the best case scenario, which is frankly not realistic. We have shown the clear reality of the matter. With credible sources, we have shed light to the true horrific nature of state care. Abuse, neglect, which further enhances trauma and violence. Audience, judges, opponents, would you want any child you know and love be placed in such a system? The proposition stated that in their unique model, they will get top psychologists and other related workers. But I wonder, where are you going to get these workers from? Them don't just drop out of the sky. In our society, state care facilities often face high turnover rates. No top psychologist wants to work in a state care facility, it's just the honest truth. They are faced with high turnover rates. You need some serious money. You need some serious money for that to come to a reality. In your arguments, you stated that money is funded, but where is the proof? That proof is absent. Honorable judges, it's high time we address the real solution here. A proactive, community-based approach that tackles these roots issues head on. This means strengthening families, building community, support and addressing the causes of violence at their source. By empowering families and providing mental health resources, we can indeed create an environment where these children don't need to be saved by an ill-equipped system. My opponents, it is as transparent as glass. Supporting families and communities is not only the humane choice, but the effective one, rather than putting them in some ridiculous system. So what can I say? The case has been closed, the arguments have spoken, and our opponents, I'm sure they understand. Only a collaborative, community-focused approach can truly break this cycle of violence. And as we lay down our final point, let's be clear. Placing children in state care is a band-aid on a deep wound. And it's time to choose a solution that actually helps. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, my dear opponents, this House should focus on real solutions, not temporary fixes.
Thank you, and let's give these children the support they truly deserve. We rest our case.
And now we'll have the submission from the reply speaker from the proposition team. Please make her welcome. Hear her.
Esteemed judges, valued audience, and respected public. Good afternoon. As the third speaker of the proposition, I will be fortifying our argument and demonstrating the solidity of our points, hence proving our argument significantly sturdier. I will use this opportunity to dismantle the opposition's embarrassing stance against the children of our society. We, the proposition, are entirely in agreement with this House in placing children in state care when factors within their family, community, etc. predispose them to violent behavior. There is no other way to put this. It is depravity for you to see the detriment in which a child will end up if they stay within a home, family, or community which exerts issues that predispose them to violent behavior and turn a blind eye or try to justify this. Allow me to enlighten you. State care provides a safe environment away from potentially harmful influences. It ensures that children are protected from immediate dangers within their family or community, reducing the risk of physical and emotional harm. Children in state care have access to trained professionals such as psychologists, social workers, and counselors who will offer specialized support and interventions. This professional help will address the root causes of violent behavior more effectively than what is available in a home setting. The improved state care will include access to the best educational resources and programs tailored to the needs of at-risk or potentially violent children. This will help them catch up academically and develop skills that reduce their predisposition to violence. In state care, children are exposed to positive adult role models who will influence their behavior positively. This exposure will help them learn and adopt non-violent ways of interacting with others as opposed to their initial home setting. So, you, the opposition, mentioned tragic failures in the state care. Now, I mentioned all these issues in the state care earlier, or rather not issues, but what can be possible based on our new and reformed state care system that my previous speakers proposed. Now, our reforms are targeted interventions and funding, as mentioned more than once, which you, the opposition, seem to not be hearing. As it relates to your experience to Lisa, it is quite unfortunate. Lisa was not in a newly reformed state care, though, which we definitely advocate for. The state care advocates for and will hold our future generation in our newly reformed state care. We newly have made a therapeutic center, and it has been mentioned also. Lisa was not a part of it at that time, unfortunately. Again. So you also mentioned that it is not optimal or practical to have them be taken out of the homes because it is water being caught in a bucket. However, you are not able to propose another solution for this. You mentioned community centers. We mentioned community centers for another reason. We mentioned that we will go in the homes first and address the issue from there, where social workers or psychologists will analyze the issues and then propose if these children need to be sent in home in state care or not. Poverty was also mentioned as a root cause. Why would you leave the child in an impoverished home? Intervention it is not, we highlighted intervention in these steps because it is the first thing. Our communities, as you mentioned once more, needs to be, we need to go into the communities first. That is what was mentioned in our steps. Community homes intervention analyze. Then, if needed, courts will be included and children will be taken out of their homes, if necessary. Now, you also mentioned throwing children in homes that are already burdened. Children will not be thrown in homes already burdened because we will have this newly reformed home based on funding from international and private sectors, not loans or government. Our ultimate goal is rehabilitation and reintroduction. Once they are rehabilitated, families are analyzed and are deemed safe for our children's return, then we will have them return and they will not be taken.
We now invite both teams to shake hands while the judges go and have what we hope will be a short deliberation.
Magic. Mrs. Obibrigi. Mr. Ardin.
Until I bring a fan base. And this fan base.
All right, we'll do a few housekeeping matters while we wait on the adjudicator. didn't matter while we wait. All right, there's a beautiful young lady to my left. Left, at the back. Her name is Miss Dillon. All right, so what will happen is that we will move to lunch after the judges have given us their reply or response. The teams, the team members, you will come to me, and the coaches, or let the coaches come to me. I'll give you your tickets for lunch for your team and yourselves. So, as previously determined, 5 team members, 2 coaches. All right, so for each college, you'll come to me to get your ticket for lunch. The other supporters, you'll go to Miss Dillon there at the back. Wait for us, Miss Dillon. Okay, good. All right, the tickets are color-coded, so just go and you'll get a ticket. All right, and then the ushers at the back, wave your hands, ushers, please. Awesome. The ushers at the back will lead us into McDonald Hall, where we will dine in this space. All right? So I'm asking everyone just to, as soon as we're finished here, lunch is provided in McDonald Hall, and we will eat in that space. All right? Fellowship with one another, have communion with one another until we meet again on Thursday. All right? I don't know where we will end up on Thursday, whether we will be all the way in Montego Bay or up in the hills of Mandeville. All right? Because as per the random drawing, only 2 colleges are left for drawing. CTC or Sam Sharp Teachers College. All right? So let's give and remember, on the outside to my right, there are bathrooms and other facilities that you may have access to. All right, so we'll just wait for the adjudicators, and then I will come back to do the drawing of where our debate finals will be hosted. All right, so let's give them a few more minutes.
Testing. Good afternoon, everybody. We're not just at the end of our last debate, we're at the end of the debate today overall. A time was had, it was fun, lots of words were exchanged, and I'm going to exchange some words of my own. So what did we have in the last debate? There was a conversation that I think is particularly crucial to be had at this particular time in Jamaica's status quo. So I think it's really important that we had a chance to really engage in that particular discussion here today. So what did we hear from proposition? We hear from proposition this idea, this very important idea that it is the state's duty first and foremost to protect these children by whatever means necessary. And because it is the state's duty to protect these children by whatever means necessary, that sort of argumentation requirement, not just by Jamaica's constitution but also international law, is what necessitates this sort of intervention. And because of that, it is absolutely acceptable and reasonable for intervention to occur. But what the panel thought that we didn't get from the side proposition was a clearer look at what this intervention looks like, insofar as that look would distinguish it from what exists in status quo. So we hear from proposition that we're going to have a greater number of social workers, psychologists, and people within that sort of professional realm going into communities, assessing the home situation, and then making a choice to intervene thereafter. However, the reasonably educated citizen can, deduce from their analysis of status quo that that already exists. And if that already exists, then what then is different about the framework that we're getting from proposition? And if a framework that's been offered in a policy debate is not different from what exists in status quo, which is something that opposition would have pointed out, then what truly, deeper down, necessitates the implementation of the policy in and of itself? And now move to side opposition. So what we got from opposition was this nuanced perspective that we thought showed some depth of comparative analysis regarding stakeholder analysis and situational analysis. So we hear from side opposition this analysis of state care that really and truly painted for the panel a complete idea of what issues exist in state care currently and how those issues would completely remove the necessity and the possibility of putting children in state care because of those systemic issues. They tell us that, these issues aren't something that can be fixed in the short term. They require some depth of thought, some deep digging and deep dive into the actual history of state care, such that we can truly fix these systemic problems. They tell us that, yes, state care is bad. They can see that, yes, the family is also bad. But here is why they get more from staying with their families as opposed to being thrown in the state care system. They tell us that due to attachment theory, we see where children have some psychosocial and emotional benefit that they get from staying with their parents. And an important idea that the panel thought augmented this sort of argumentation was this idea of the cultural appropriateness of having children being raised by their parents. Because when we take a look at the Jamaican status quo, it is perfectly normal, because it's what happens, that children are raised by their family, and more so than their family, this sort of community-focused raising of children. And because we have that sort of thing in status quo, we can understand how this argument placed in the Jamaican context has some sort of benefit to be had by the children and by society as a whole if children were to stay with their families. Proposition tells us, well, you know, problems exist within these families, and there's violence and there's emotional trauma, and this may lead to suicide. And we hear from opposition that, you know, this isn't a fault that's created by the children. This isn't a fault that's created by the families. This is a systemic problem. And so this matter on both sides requires a systemic solution that addresses those root causes. So they tell us that in their world, this policy will look like having independent bodies to do some pre-assessment of the communities themselves, to really understand and appreciate the problems that are contributing to the violence that they currently have. And they'll have those independent bodies draft solutions to mitigate against those systemic issues, such that when children are either when they stay in their families or they're integrated into their families, they don't have this perpetuation of the violent culture that's damning them to juvenile delinquency and repetitive teenage pregnancy, like in the case of Kenisha, I think it was. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we had happening in this debate. And you know, I hope that as a people, we're able to acknowledge and appreciate the information that was impressed upon us, and really apply that to the actual functioning of the Jamaican society insofar as its modus operandi reflects what we heard here today. Thank you very much. Now that we've done the yapping, we're gonna get to the scores. Are you guys excited? Yes. I'm nervous. We're nervous. Yeah. We're nervous. Who do you guys think won the first match? One second. And we're back from this commercial break. So who did you guys say you think won the first match? Okay. So the winner for the first match was Churches Teachers College. And there's more excitement to be had, guys. We haven't gotten to the best speaker yet. Who do you think the best speaker was? Whoa, it seems we have some critical thinkers, some debaters in the audience, because the best speaker was indeed the third speaker from... And now we're moving over to match 2, because you know when they say, what they say again, when it's nice, we do it twice, so we're doing it twice. Who do you guys think won the second match? Okay, so I'm just going to tell you guys the answer, because if I listen to you guys, we're going to have another debate. So the winner for the second match was indeed the team from the GC. I hope that's not the part that you're wicked in this evening. The bottom must be, the bottom was almost gone. But we love the spirit, and our best speaker for the second match was the second speaker. The second speaker. And that wraps up the results from today's proceedings. Thank you very much, audience. Thank you very much, teams. It's their time.
the space. Just a few announcements. Let's pause, please. And on that note, CTC will be hosting the finals of the TCJ and Jade debate competition. Also, ladies and gentlemen, please, also note that the third place match will also be played on Thursday between St. Joseph Teachers College and Sam Sharp Teachers College. So you are not excluded from the preparation space. All right, so third place match will be between St. Joseph's and Sam Sharp, and then the championship match will be between GC Foster College and Church Teachers College, and we all make our way to Mandeville on Thursday. All right, please note that please monitor your WhatsApp groups and your communication channels. You'll get the moods by later this afternoon. All right, please follow the ushers as you make your way down to McDonald Hall. Thank you very much for coming on behalf of the St. Joseph's family. We wish for you a very peaceful and productive rest of the afternoon. Pack, set, go now. Please stand for grace. Please stand for grace. I cannot sing, so let's go. After 3, 2, 3.
For health and strength and daily food, we praise thy name, O Lord. Amen.
Amen. Lord bless everyone, please. Make your way to McDonald's Hall. Ushers are on the outside. And when you are through, please travel safely home. God bless you all.